Hi, everybody. It's the show with Ron where we look at the headlines. And like every day, we've got more headlines. I kind of like to do one every day, but it gets around to Sunday. And most of the time, most of the articles on Sunday are, I think, stuff that have been pre prepped uh, during Friday, Thursday, and Friday. So there's something to publish on that day, and it's not much of anything that's worth looking at. First, we got inflation back higher here. Uh, Obviously, this is going to be a big issue for the president going forward because despite most of the media trying to tell people that everything's fine and the president's not to blame for the economy, people do blame the president, whoever's in power, for the economy, rightly or wrongly. And certainly people do feel the pinch of inflation at the grocery store, even though there are many months where they have all these elaborate charts and the media explains that it's all fine. It's what they call, see, all the media came up with this thing to defend the president called the vibe economy. And it's just a kind of a thing to say, you're kind of mistaken that things aren't as bad as they are. So hopefully, I mean, for the Biden administration's sake, they don't believe on the hype that everything is fine, and they have to work really hard to make sure that things don't go south. We have this situation. This wasn't on Drudge, but this is the ringgit, the Malaysian currency. People, you always have to look for where unforeseen contagions would start, currency contagions. And with this, I'm obviously referencing, I think it was in 1997, worldwide currency contagion started in Thailand with the bot crash. This is where a lot of countries were. This is a big generalization, but I'll say it, a lot of countries were essentially lying about the actual value of their currency. And there were a lot of currency pegs in place, and it caused a lot of pain all around the world. And here it's an interesting thing we have in Malaysia. Don't need to peg the ringgit again. Now, this was, when after the 1997 crash around the world, there were a lot of very small countries. They're not one of the exchange economies. Like everything everything in the world, the exchange currency is the U.S. dollar. So it creates a situation where the U.S. can inflate their currency endlessly. And on top of that, they've got a $34 trillion debt. Little countries can't do that. They're not energy independent. They got to import all that. So a lot of countries would have a peg to make sure their currency doesn't swing too high or too low with market forces. There are good things and there are bad things about that. In 97, there were pegs, for instance, in the Thai economy. I've got to open something because I'm talking a lot. Got to take a drink. And the IMF had to have loans to bail out these countries. Essentially, they give them floating currency reserves to pull on to maintain the level of their economy, to buy and sell some of their currency to keep it stable. And to do that, they had to unpeg their currency and let it free flow with the market, which probably ultimately is the best thing for a country because it forces the economic realities of the world on that country. Because if they're not competitive or they have a closed off market or they're spending a lot of money internally to prop up the currency, that's bad over the long term. Or if they're subsidizing gasoline, that's not sustainable because the people, they want the government to keep paying for the gasoline no matter how high or how low it gets. But it creates a situation where investment's not made to go to more efficient forms of fuel, et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is all a generalization. It's a huge can of worms about anything you say about economics. But what I want to get to is that during the 1997 crisis, Malaysia rejected the IMF and kept their currency pegged, and they ended up getting out of that situation with a lot less pain to the average man than than Thailand did. But that's an aside. The issue here is the White House got to focus on making sure that the economy, nothing goes south this year, and the Republicans would love it if there's a big disaster in the economy. Here is, again, so we have a congressional hearing on the Biden classified documents probe. So they got Trump so stupidly on his part, a very unforced error, very chaotic, that he had all those documents in his residence or his place down there in Florida. So he got all tripped up in that. So they tried to do the same thing to Biden, and they did. They investigated him, and they got a result that was even better than Biden being prosecuted for it. At exactly the right time, of course, this is all a coincidence, when the report comes out, it says they can't really prosecute him, and the way the results of this was presented in the news and sort of came to be seen in a one-line sentence about this circumstance was that Biden's age and memory was too poor that he couldn't really be prosecuted. He couldn't be prosecuted for this. So that brought out this issue of Biden's, not really his age, but his comportment, the way he seems and appears senile often in public. And there's lots of clips of that. That brought that out really into the public, and much to the consternation of the Democrats and a lot of the media. And then they had the State of the Union, where Biden did a great job and he seemed energetic. I don't know if they shot him up with some pep pills or something, but he seemed fine. I'm not sure if that really erases all the other times he's been shown to be kind of maybe out of it in public. And then, again, see, this is all planned. The Republicans had this all set up. So right after the State of the Union the next week, so the Democrats can't just say, well, the whole issue of age is settled. 81 is not too old. They have this guy on the stand who has investigated Biden, and he's some kind of guy, supposedly nonpartisan, I'm sure he is, who's just trying to do his job, and he's pulled into all this politics where the Republicans are trying to, are trying to bring to the fore again the idea why he wasn't being prosecuted was his forgetfulness, supposedly. And this is a characterization. Now, they also brought out that there's a double standard, and Trump was being prosecuted, but not Biden. But there are a lot of differences. Trump resisted the whole thing and wouldn't sit down for an interview. All very weird behavior where Biden cooperated. But the whole point of this is not that. It's to have something that happens after the State of the Union where Democrats and a lot of the media are saying this age question is settled, is to bring this age question up again. And that's what happened there. Okay. More about all this big money stuff. I wouldn't like to be in that situation, but it's kind of a better situation than I'm in now. I'd like to, these people at least have big money that they can play around with in court. Suppose that shows you've at least gotten to a good point of your business life. Tanning, never got that. You know what tanning is about, it's and I've talked about this on some shows before. If you're in a world, you always want to show that you're the unique thing, the unique human, and you wanted to show your wealth, I guess really is what it's about. So if you're in a society where almost everybody lives inside, has to live and work inside, maybe in a very cold climate, and you're very pale, white people white as a sheet. So the rich people are ones who can go to Hawaii or Florida or travel around the world. They have free time where they can be outside. That's not how anyone makes their living. So it's a display of wealth and free time. And so by tanning, you are kind of sidestepping the idea, and you're showing people, hey, I'm wealthy and I have time to it's a status symbol that shows status. And now in countries, if you go to other countries where most people are engaged in outdoor work or agriculture, you will find the opposite prejudice in that country, where people will not want to have darkened skin because that shows you are more common, you are less wealthy. So this is where countries where most Westerners don't understand this. You have like whitening lotions and stuff to make your face whiter, and people in the West say, oh no, this is prejudice against black people in these countries where there are no black people. But what it really means, it's the opposite of the thing you have in industrialized countries, where you have country people who have to be in the sun and who are really brown. They want to show wealth and status and class, and thus they wish to be whiter in skin tone, in the same way people in the West in industrialized countries wish to have a tanned skin tone. So that's what it's all about. This is sure to be fun, and I like to mention this because very few people watch my videos. I'm hopeful. I suppose because of the subjects that I talk about, and I had some information about this, that this sort of subject matter is kind of shadow bound, perhaps, and because I'm kind of an equal opportunity commentator. There's reasons for both Republicans, Democrats, right and left to object to people telling the truth about them on both sides. So I don't think I'm not abasing myself before either side. So, however, I was going to say, whenever I mention RFK or put RFK in the tags, I get like a whole handful of extra views. I don't know why he's on the radar. But this certainly will be interesting. Whenever you have a third-party candidate in the United States that's sort of viable, we'll see how viable RFK is. He's anti-vaxxer, a lot of weird, non-scientific ideas. He could be a protest vote for either side. Might probably hurt the Republicans more than the Democrats, since he seems to be closer to a lot of those Republican conspiratorial concepts, even though he's part of the Kennedy family. So how about NFL quarterback, football guy Aaron Rodgers, or actor and former governor of Minnesota Jesse Ventura? These would all be characters. These are adding a character to a race and mix things up in ways we may not even understand now. New social media generation enamored by Hitler. I mean, even just by saying that, I can get shadow banned, I believe. But see, the problem is, I think, they bring up this generational concept here where you get further and further away from a big cataclysm where every part of a society had to mobilize to stop it, which was World War II. You get now so far away, people have forgotten it, and they've mishandled the messaging of society. Maybe new technology like social media can go in and change people's perceptions wrongly, make them think incorrect things, and certainly the internet and social media is a tool for that. But I also think it's kind of an over-reverence for Nazis and Hitler. See, just these social media platforms are so scared of people even saying that. It gives, it continues an aura about all this National Socialism era stuff, the Hitler era. And it should have been opened up. It should be mocked in the same way they did with Hogan's Heroes, as opposed to having too much reverence and not allowing people to talk and debate about it. I think you open up when it's, there are negatives about letting allowed people with very cruel viewpoints that are way outside society to have a voice. But it's probably worse if you stop people from having a speech, in my opinion. I think you should. We probably would err on the side of having too much freedom of speech as not enough. And what the result will be is the truth and reality will win out. And I think truth and reality are kind of fighting back because they've used censorship to try to censor these ideas out of YouTube and Google and this sort of thing, instead of letting them be held up to the truth and ridicule. And I think the only reason a lot of these conspiracy theories and crazy ideas about very evil ideologies have grown is because we've kind of let them be venerated and put them in a closet. And now that with social media, you can manipulate people's feelings about society, that things are being hidden from them or the truth is not being said. So it's kind of too late to fix it now, but I'll tell you what we should have done, and that was it. More free speech, not less. Okay. Organized crime rings plaguing retailers. They've really let up on... I got to turn up the air here. They've really let up on crime fighting. At the end of the 90s when Clinton was in there, they had a really strict policy that was continued on even more by George W. Bush. They kind of used the 9/11 incident to crack down even more on all manner of people. They used all that screening and TSA stuff to just, they linked all the driver's licenses, which used to be kind of separate in each state, all together. They really locked things down. And then suddenly, I think really around the George Floyd thing, they just let up. And a lot of local governments in big cities let up on policing. And now we have this situation where retailers are facing mob rule. However, the one positive thing for law enforcement is as long as it's a crime ring, some of these crime rings, they can bust them up. Maybe you go in the state level and you make some really harsh laws to put people away for a long time. Then you target in whatever these 5 or 10 crime rings, get all those people and then archive them away, so to speak. And you might cut out this sort of this trend, new trend in crime. Hezbollah was firing down missiles. This is in the northern border of Israel. It's been long thought that Iran wants to have a wider war. They already have that situation in Gaza going, and they got the Houthi rebels down there in Yemen to disrupt shipping in the Suez Canal. And all the while, a lot in the West have turned against Israel, where usually in this circumstance they should be for them, but it's probably a combination of social media manipulation and Israel's conduct in that war. And I also think maybe the bigger story is that, before this happened, the Netanyahu regime was being decried as fascist in Western media. The worst thing, they're changing the Supreme Court makeup, they're this and that, and the rest of the civil society and the politicians in Israel were attacking that too. And that went on for a couple years. Suddenly with this now, Netanyahu there, he's kind of acting the way he wants to with this big war. And I think there's a lot of people in Israel and the West, in politics and in government, that would not be too unhappy if the conduct of this war, which has had far too many civilian casualties, is good for them because it impacts the Netanyahu government that they've been fighting against for a couple years now. And if that causes a collapse of that government eventually, that accomplishes a bigger mission. Okay, just had a call. Okay, whistleblower found dead in Charleston. The Boeing guy. It's never a positive thing. Thus spawns a lot of conspiracy theories. Haiti's gone mad. This happens all the time, but this time it's quite bad. There is a coalition of Caribbean nations that are trying to handle that. Sharon Stone names Hollywood co-star she was pressured to have sex with. Oh, well, hold on. Oh, I got another call. Okay. Yes, what was I going to say? U.S. missionaries trapped. I grew up in that middle American Christian missionary world. I never went. I know a lot of people who did. It always just seemed like that they were, I don't have anything against Christianity. I think it's good for society. It's good to believe it, to know where you're going, have some path for your life, keep the kids on the straight and narrow. But I always did feel like the missionaries would go to these places because the people there were maybe ripe for conversion. When you're at your lowest point, saying, "Oh, these wonderful saintly people who are giving us all this free stuff, including all this Bible learning." That doesn't seem quite fair when you get somebody at their lowest point, but whatever. Maybe they need something to believe in. Certainly the own society has collapsed. So I was on here to Sharon Stone. Okay, I was going to say, so this brings up a great character, and maybe now he's considered a scumbag, but it's Robert Evans, who is a producer of the Godfather films and Chinatown, and was a producer of this very middling film that Sharon Stone's talking about called Sliver, and then she was supposedly, allegedly pressured to have sex with the co-star of it, or the star of it, but really, Robert Evans is a fantastic, crazy, super Hollywood character, and he had his own way of speaking, almost his own language of very Hollywood speak. And he even had a short-lived cartoon show that was making a kind of a thing about his life. He died in 2019. He's an interesting character to look up on the internet and read about. Maybe look at some of those cartoons of his show. Because he was very important in the 70s as a big producer and an incredible character thereafter. And isn't this weird photos? All I thought when I saw this photo was, this looks like a filter on these guys, the way their mouths are all open and like two... This looks like if you didn't know who these people were, it looks like a stock photo of like, oh, we're so happy we're at this daycare center. And so it turns out it was faked. How weird. It shows how quickly, they're saying now this is a big crisis. For the palace, it just shows how quickly that if you botch something, the tables could turn. College class teaches joy. They should probably teach that when you're in elementary school, like along with meditation or something. I would have loved to have learned those things earlier. What would murder in space look like? See, it's all about the technicalities. It's not like, oh, a great injustice has been done, so we're going to settle this. No, it's jurisdiction and defense lawyers and that sort of a thing. So it's a little bit of a cynical note to leave on, but we had some interesting news stories today. Let me tell you about my book. Young people find their dreams and failures in Bangkok, and then go on to the furthest places in search of something the modern world can no longer give. This is the story of There Are Still Unknown Places, my new novel on sale at Asia Books and on Kindle ebook. It's a tale for a new generation, disillusioned by the promises of the world, wanting to search for their destinies in far-off places. So there we go. You don't have to go around fighting in somebody else's battle or marching in somebody else's parade. Everybody wants you to, but let's join me each day or every other day, and we'll look at the headlines and see if there's any context we can add to them. So I'll see you tomorrow.